everyone, to another episode of Taking Up Space, a Michele Mayer podcast. Super excited about coming forward today with a thought-provoking conversation for you all. You know, this conversation came upon me just a little while ago. I was around the house doing some things, and I was listening to some YouTube videos from yesterday. I've been listening to a whole series of YouTube videos. And it was so refreshing to me to just get back to feeding my spirit things that my spirit loves, things that I'm interested in spiritually. And I got to thinking about how we kind of lose our way, how it's so easy to lose our footing or to lose our way. You know, a lot of us have built ourselves up spiritually to a place where we have a knowing of the things that we love. Our belief systems have become knowings. You know, we've walked them so long that, and we've come in and out of experiences leaning wholeheartedly on them so many times that they become a knowing, right? I know many of you see different communications that I post. I always say no, and I use the spelling GNOW, and that is to really know a thing, not just to okay, I get it. No, you know it because you've walked it, you've wrestled with it, you've hit it at every angle to try to overcome it or to come to terms with it. You know it, and this is one of the many things that God is speaking to the children all throughout their walks, is to remind the children of who I am, let them know from whence they came, tell them all of the extraordinary things that have befell all of their forefathers and all of their ancestors. Awaken their minds to me. Don't ever let them forget. Let them know, and the only way that they will know is if they approach me in all of my many ways at different angles. The only way that they will know me is if they wrestle with me, is if they wrestle and they don't give up and they don't say, well, you know what, this is too much. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do this over here, because doing this over here only leads you back to me, yet at a later time with wasted experiences. This is honestly, I believe this is the whole idea of life. Is in all of our individual walks, we all have our own wrestlings with the God within us. We all wrestle with the two on the shoulder, the angel and the demon, if you want to call it that. The positives and the negatives, we wrestle with them. This is the work that we must walk in balance within this life. And I was listening to many videos today and yesterday about this subject, ancient topics. And I said to myself, well, you know all these things. Many of these things, you know, there were some things that I did not connect, that I did not piece together, and I was brought into knowledge of by way of the YouTube videos. But the fundamentals to them I knew, and some of them I knew without ever reading them. I knew because I went through experiences that showed themselves to me, that showed that information to me without having to read it in any particular text or hear it from any particular saint or sage or, you know, wisdom teacher of the past. Yet, when things came upon me in my life, I held to them very strongly. All of those fundamentals, all of those truths, I held to very strongly initially. They were my go-to. They were all I had. They were my force and my shield that I shielded myself, used to shield myself against. And I was successful at doing it. But what happens in life, friend, and this is what I want to speak to you guys about. If you sit in something so long, that thing becomes normal. And that shield that you had up is still there. But if you're not diligent, you'll allow your mind to wander. You'll allow your mind to wander, and it lowers your defense. I don't want to say it lowers your defense. That's not true. It lowers your alertness. Because now you're in this thing for an extended amount of time, and the alert signal is not amplified as it was initially. It becomes normal and it becomes repetitive. So that which you were constantly alert against, you're not as much anymore. There is a science to this. And this is how I think we find ourselves in situations where we begin to accept stuff. We begin to be okay with things that we normally wouldn't be okay with. We found comfort and repetition in it. No matter how discomforting it is, no matter how foreign it is to you, you found comfort in it because you've learned it in a certain way. You know its rhythm. And just like a snake that is standing in front of you, that when it's looking at you, and when you move, it moves. And when you move, it moves. And there's this symbionts. It's the same way. It's the same way with these situations that come into your life. Situations are just like the serpent. In the sense that they kind of, it's like a hypnotic thing. They become normal for you, and you start to become normalized to their rhythm. And all that you knew before, you still know now while in them. It's just that you're not wielding those weapons because you become adjusted to the situation. It's a science. And like I tell you, all of this stuff is fascinating to me because it's brilliant. It's a science. But God is so relentless to God's love for the children that God always sends something to awaken you. Whether it's an idea in the form of you scrolling social media and you just see something like I did, and it's like, oh, okay, I was braiding my hair. And I was like, okay, well, what could I watch while I braid my hair? And while I was braiding it, I started watching these videos, just several different types. And then I stuck to one particular channel and watched the whole series. And it reinstilled me things that I knew, but I had let be dormant, that I had let all of the negatives of life pile up upon. And subdue the things that I knew. And I know that there are many of you out here doing the same thing. I'm not any different from you guys. I'm not. And this is why I come forward with these videos. I'm not any different from you all. And I think that in some instances with some people might be a turnoff. Because some people, I think, want a Messiah type or someone to come and be like, this larger than life figure. And then when they find out that you're just regular like them, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm just regular like you. That's it. I'm not any more special than you are. Please don't think that when I come forward with these videos. I am no better than you. We are all neck to neck in this. All of us. All of us have the fire within us. All of us. All of us have the Spirit of God within us. All of God's children are all neck to neck. What you must remember is that we were initially in the makings to be gods. Please remember this. We were created in God's image because God wanted us to be potential gods in the whole hierarchy of things. But things happened and it thwarted it. It made it more difficult for us to ascend to that godly level. Doesn't mean that we can't get there, and it doesn't mean that we don't have what it takes to do it. It just means that it's just a more difficult task because we're bound in this earthly body. We're bound into this realm of material where we're dealing with these two urges, these positives and these negatives. And this is the hardest part. And this is what made me come forward with this video, because I myself deal with these positives and these negatives. I could be the most peaceful, loving person, but if you do me something, I could be really something else too. And it takes knowing, it takes understanding yourself to master that aspect of you. It really does. All of us are the same in this. None of us are exempt from this. So you need to look at yourself and say, how do I respond to things when people do things to me that are unnecessary, that are not warranted? How do I overcome them and not let them taint me? Because the work in this life is to not let the things of this life taint you. Last time I came on, I spoke to the child within. The child within, if you can remember back to when you were a child, if you can remember being on the playground and things didn't go your way and this and that and the other, and you would walk off and you wouldn't want to play with them no more, or it could have been your brothers and sisters or your cousins or somebody and y'all didn't get along, you know. I had a big wheel. I love my big wheel, y'all. My family know this. I love my big wheel, and I've always been a big girl. I've always been like somebody that knew herself. I was not like weak and shy, and I wasn't that. I was shy in a sense, but around the people that knew me, oh no, I was very vocal, and I was very present in my space. And my cousin Patrice and my brother, if they did something that I didn't like or they messed with my big wheel, oh, it was a problem. You know what I mean? But then later on that night, it was like not even later on the night, maybe in another hour or so, when my grandmother would sit us down, or you know, our parents would sit us down to eat, it wouldn't be anything. It would be no problem. We wouldn't even remember it. We would hug and mean it and say we are sorry to each other and mean it. And I remember that feeling I would have when we would do that. It was so good and so loving because it was true. What happened to that aspect to us? I still have that. And that's what brought me on to this conversation today. Many of us still have that, and if you can't tap into that, that is because you subdued that childlike aspect of yourself. You must raise him or her. They're still there. They don't leave you. They just are piled upon all the different layers that you've created for yourself in order to deal with all of the hurtful stuff of this life. Because this life is a hurtful thing. You get hurt by people that maybe didn't intend on hurting you. Parents, love relationships, family situations, friends. And so work environments, all kinds of things, romantic relationships, you get hurt by. So you put up these buffers and you subdue that childlike aspect of yourself, which is your power source. That is your longevity. That is the most purest aspect of yourself that will grant you access to any and every other space that this world has to offer you. It is about not allowing all the things of this life to weigh you down and to change you. To change you. Like, I'm serious. I have my own struggles, not to be talking about my personal stuff, but I have my own struggles against people that I feel like I have been unfairly treated by. People that I've been good to, that I feel like have just done me dirty. And I'm still being good to them because I could be dealing with them on a whole nother level. And, you know, what would it be to me? But even then, in that instance, you know, you look to do even more right by them because you see yourself in them. You go back to that childhood aspect of yourself and you say, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. Who cares? It's not a win or lose. Okay, you won. If that's how you feel, you won. Have that. And a lot of times in life, that's the hardest things to do, especially because we put up these buffers of image, of fear. A lot of us are just afraid. We're running around here afraid, and we're too proud to show it, so we lash out at each other. Confused, hurt by other stuff, overcome by what other people's opinions are going to be because we want to be accepted and to fit in. It has been the longevity of the storms, friend, that do you. It's the longevity of the storms. Because I truly believe all of us at one time did not come in. I don't believe any of us came into the world with the things that many of us leave out of this world with. I do not. I believe that we come in with a clean, pure slate, and it's the experiences that turn us. And if even the sages, when you look at, I'm going to be speaking to the Essenes and to the Nazarenes and the various groups that were going on in the time of Jesus on Wednesday. And when you look at these groups, there was a purpose and a reason that they were so powerful. A lot of what you see in the New Testament, a lot of what you see in the Old Testament, friend, the Old Testament, most importantly, you're seeing the Essenes, you're seeing the Nazarenes, that whole concept of things. And I'm going to break that down a little deeper in my Bible study. And I began thinking, well, how were they able to stay in such a stasis? How were they able to stay in such a balance amongst all the evil and all of the frustrations and all of the wickedness that was going on? How did they stay in such a balance? But when I read back, when I rewind my mind back to what I just read from the Old Testament, they were able to do it because they separated themselves. See, that's the part we're missing. It's hard, y'all. And I tell you, that's why I know God is watching and God is not as punishing as he had been, because he sees the troubles that these children are facing. These Essenes, these Nazarenes, even Isaiah, Moses went and lived with Jethro for 40 years. I'm going to get on that in Bible study. The Essenes, the Nazarenes, and all these different sects, Isaiah, they separated themselves from the normal world because they know that it's too hard to live amongst us, to live amongst people, and to stay in balance. You can have a knowing, and you could be standing in your knowing, and it could be a truthful knowing, meaning it's not fabricated. You're not perpetrating a fraud. You're really standing on what you know and you're acting upon it, and it shows in your life. And then boom, here comes the enemy with a blow. He hits you with something, and it comes like a storm. And now you're in the middle of all of these different things going on around you that came out of nowhere. You were not prepared for. You could never have thought that it would come upon you. And you lean closer in on your knowing. You bunker down in that knowing. And that knowing never leaves you, friend. But what it does is, the longer it stays on you and the longer you stay in it, the weaker you get, because it becomes normal. The mind normalizes things so that it can find peace and rest. It's just how we're set up. This is why they left. So that they could always stay ready. They could always stay strong and alert. Because after a while, you can ring the alarm so much that the alarm sounds normal. It's just a normal sound. And this is what's happening to many of us that are spiritually powerful people, spiritually solid people. When you get in a situation, and that situation becomes normal, your mind begins to start wandering and it off of the things that strengthen it. It does. Take it from me. I have been there. That's why I'm coming forward with this. I'm big girl enough to come forward and say that. Say what many of y'all won't say. Your mind begins to wander. And you know, don't let it be a public thing where people can see you and micromanage it. It becomes, it doesn't stand in the power that it really is. It is in. It is in. It does not show itself in that way any longer, because now you're wrestling with consistency of chaos. And it's no longer shocking. And you begin to subtly, slowly immerse yourself just kind of in that vibration. This is how the great ones did it. There was a science to overcoming it. It's separating yourself from it. But what do you do when you can't separate yourself from it? What does one do? God always sends a vessel to wake you, to say, look it over here. Remember me over here? Remember we were into this, and remember you were reading all of these different things, and this was your meditation, this was your thought. Come back to this, because that over there is of that storm. That's of the stuff that came with the chaos. There's no power in that. Your power is over here. Come back to this. And many of you are in those situations, whatever that power source is for you. Whatever it is, I don't know your particular situation. For me, my power source is my spiritual studies, the things that I meditate my mind on, that I think about all day. Come back to those things that strengthen you. Don't get wrapped up in the facade of all the hypotheticals of that negative chaos stuff. Go back to the childlike aspect of yourself where it doesn't even matter. I don't really. You can go first. Here, you have the ball. Okay, we'll play your game first. Go back to that. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really even matter. None of this matters. All that matters is what you do in your life and what you focus on in your mind and what you say with your mouth. I'm here to tell you. And God provides wiggle room. God knows all that we go through, friend. I'm here to tell you. God knows. And don't ever say never. That's number 2. Never say never. Because never is a word that when you say it, and you say it with an authoritative way, like you really mean it, never begins to create scenarios for you to show you what it's like to be in that and to deal with that. And then now even though it's a wisdom teaching method, it will show itself in your life for you to be able to say, I understand now. I get that. I can respect that because I understand. I understand. My off the wall podcast conversation for you guys today. You're loved more than you'll ever know. This life is not an easy road, but it is designed to make you better. It is. Be good to yourselves and be good to each other. Peace and love.